Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I am Daz, if you didn't know already. Usually we do a footy podcast, as you know, most people will know listening to the shows. I also do a football and music one-on-one episodes, which have been going really well. My next guest is not a football fan, but I'm a massive fan of his. From the early 80s, as everyone knows, I love my house music. I go on and on and on about it, but we're just going to talk music today. Actually, he might talk a little bit about his dad. His dad was a goalkeeper, so maybe touch on that, and then pretty much why he doesn't support football. So there are people out there that don't like footy, and that's okay. But we're going to talk music today. I'm so grateful to have him on, Mr. Mark Archer. People over here might know him better as Alternate. Massive part of the rave scene in England back in the day, and still going strong. So, Mark, welcome to the episode. It's great to have you on.
Nice one.
So I'll just ask you quickly about your dad. You said he was an aspiring goalkeeper. Had a few.
Yeah, I think he actually tried out for Villa. He was a massive football fan. Him and his dad, they both used to go to watch Wolves. Being from around Wolverhampton, that was their local team. The village where I was born. I mean, this is going to age me really bad, but there's a player called Derek Dugan, who some people might remember. That he lived in the village. I mean, there was even our next door neighbour with a player from, I think he was named Steve Daly, and he played for Coventry. But because my dad was that into football, and he tried out for Villa as a goalie, and he did football coaching at the school, which was like 4 doors away from where we lived. So he was always trying to get me involved playing, and I was absolutely crap at it. So, I just felt bad every time I tried to play football. There was loads of people like way better than me, and I was, going offside and all this, not knowing what the rules were and stuff, and it just kind of put me off in the end because I was that bad at it. I like a kickabout, but anything more than that, it's I'm just too bad.
Yeah, I was the opposite because my dad was massively into rugby. He's a Brummie lad, and he went to school with Ozzy Osbourne. Which I found out, I grew up with Deep Purple, Black Sabbath. My dad was a full rocker, but he was into rugby, and I was like, nah, that's not for me. I went more the football route. Right. I enjoy that so much. But getting back to your roots, because I asked a lot of musicians like what their parents were listening to at the time, as you're a young lad. What kind of music was your parents into?
The radio was on all the time. More Radio 2 than anything else. So it was just, there was always music on, even if people weren't in the kitchen, the radio would be on in there. So I liked pretty much everything. I mean, my mom was a massive Johnny Mathis fan, which, it's not something I was into at all. My dad was into like Barry White and Detroit Spinners and stuff like that, but he also liked a lot of new stuff that was coming out. I mean, one of his all-time favourites was Bruce Hornsby and the Range, The Way It Is, So he was into like loads of stuff. But I guess with the radio being on all the time, there were certain things that I've realised looking back at it that I picked out, like a lot of the disco stuff and the chic groups like that. And then when you'd hear like the odd early rap thing on the radio, and like The Message. You know, those are the kind of things that I really gravitated towards.
Yeah, I think it's so different. You know, the generation now is very technologically like advanced. You know, there's always something on. Their phone is on, the telly's on. Back in the day, for us, it was the radio. It just was. The radio would be playing throughout the house. You know, you only really turn the telly on for special events. I mean, Saturday for me, it was, you know, football Saturdays, match of the day stuff. But yeah, always the radio, you know, like one upstairs, one in the kitchen, always.
Yeah. And when something good came on, my dad always shouted someone to turn it up, you know, so always blaring.
Yeah, have a cup of tea, or, you know, your parents have their little wine or gin and tonic. You know, you might be able to have a shandy with them, but maybe. And cute sandwiches for me on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shandy and cute. Yeah, we were, you know,
living
at large. Yeah, living the dream. So when did you start, like, really, like, what especially with Acid House? You know, you had a guy called Gerald and all that good stuff. But when did you first start, like, did you go out to clubs and start going, you know, I'm really getting into this side of the music. I want to be a DJ, or you want to produce?
I mean, I left school in '84, but I was already like buying records and you know, listening to radio, doing loads of tapes, doing pause button mixes and stuff. And I wanted to be a DJ, but the town where we lived near, Stafford, there was only so many clubs, and they already had, you know, their own like resident DJ. So there wasn't anywhere really for me to go. So even though I wanted to be a DJ, I knew that probably wasn't going to happen. So I became a decorator through, you know, the need to start paying my mum and dad a bit of board money. And I got laid off after a year or two. There, you know, I was like the last in, the first out when there wasn't that much work. And back like a few years previously, the breakdancing days, I bumped into a bunch of guys from Stafford. One of the guys, Dean, he was more into like the mixing side of things. You know, the rest were like really good with the breakdancing stuff. He did a bit of body popping, but he was like more the DJ. And just by chance bumped into him again early on in '88. And he got a set of decks at home and said, "Oh, well, you know, why don't you come round?" And I hadn't like thought about making music. I just wanted to work out how certain things were done, because I used to buy like a lot of the electro tapes, and there were certain bits on tracks where I was like, I wonder how that's done. So I got a little Casio sampling keyboard from Dixon's, and it's only tiny. You know, you couldn't like make tracks with it properly, but you could sample things. So you'd hold it like next to the speaker and wait for the noise, press sample and record it. And so I worked out how to do certain production techniques on it. And he knew I'd got a keyboard. So I took the keyboard to his, and he'd like mix between two copies of different drum breaks, and I'd play like little bits over the top. And we did a demo cassette, but you didn't think anything of it really. You know, we weren't like, oh, we're going to be like musicians or whatever. And then that same year, a recording studio opened in Stafford, where they were getting like bands in, you know, like local rock bands who just wanted to record their demos and stuff. So we decided to take this tape that we'd done, played it to the bloke who ran the studio, and he signed us up there and then. So it was all like purely by luck, you know, that I bumped into Dean, that I got the the boot from the decorating place. The studio opened. We got signed up. It's all a bit, went a bit quick.
Yeah, it just seems a bit mental. Like, people talk about fate, but it does happen.
Yeah. So, totally.
With the decks, were they the belt driven, or were they? Because I know a lot of people that started on some decks that they have to use like a cup to actually move the platter. So did he have the proper?
Oh well, he actually had a pair of Technics 1200s. I mean, I wasn't so fortunate, and I learned to mix by playing a tape of a certain track, and then I had like a normal deck, and I played Planet Rock on the cassette, and I had Rainforest by Paul Hardcastle, and I'd speed it up or slow it down using my finger to get it in time with the tape. So there's no way of recording it, but it was just so you knew you could beat match kind of thing. And then I progressed from there onto a pair of belt drives, and then onto 1200s.
Yeah, and I think when you first start on like not techniques, I think your DJing skills get a bit better for when you do go on techniques. Because I was the same. I started on two of my dad's old ones, and I bought a little mixer. I was able to finagle them together, and obviously didn't sound the best in the world. But then a couple of years later, once I was able on the YTS scheme, I bought my first pair of decks, and never looked back. I mean, techniques are just top of the range for me, and it was just so much easier. And I was just like, oh wow, this is what it's all about. It doesn't sound like a choo-choo train coming down the track. Smash into something.
Yeah, I've still got a couple of my old tapes that I did use in the belt drives, and where you like they slur in when you push them, and then you've got to. They're not as forgiving. I think because techniques are so much sturdier. You can manipulate stuff a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Did you? I always like to ask this for DJs as well. Were you more of a because it is weird, because there are discussions, they have, in loads of groups. Did you ride the pitch, or did you touch the platter? Like
touch the platter always.
Yeah, tons of people are like, you should just use the pitch, and I've actually never really done that. I've done the slow down, fasten up with the platter. So you're on the platter side.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people who ride the pitch. I mean, there's this one DJ, Tasha. She's absolutely amazing. I mean, she was on. I recently did Boomtown Festival, and she was on before me. And how she keeps things in time. Where I've seen other DJs, and it's like it's going too slow, and it's going out both ways. It's too slow. It's too fast. So it's a skill that I don't own, and it's a bit late in the day for me to try and learn that one, I reckon.
Yeah, well, I know Dave Clark, he's a pitch rider.
Yeah.
Just some people are just like have that ear, have that skill set where they can just. Derek Carter is another one. They just use the pitch, and I'm just like, well played, lads.
Yeah.
I can't. There's just no chance. So, for your, obviously you progressed from your little Casio. What was your next bit of gear?
I mean, all the way through being signed to Blue Chip, which was the first label that we got signed to at the studio in Stafford. We were given like studio time, so we used that recording studio. We worked at the studio, myself and Dean, as engineers. So if anyone paid to go in the studio, we'd engineer for them. And then when no one was in the studio, we just like worked on tracks ourselves. So we were like firing out like loads of albums, breakbeat albums, and we did the Nexus 21, the Bizarre Inc. first album. But it wasn't until the end of '89 when that's the studio closed, and I pretty much thought that that was my music career over. And then chance meeting again, bumped into the boss of Network Records in a nightclub near Birmingham, and they signed us up. And we actually got some money when we signed to them, and actually started getting paid royalties for the music that they put out. It's the first time I'd ever seen any money from anything that I'd done, and I've been doing it for like two years. So the first thing I bought when we signed to them was an Akai sampler, because I was more of I wasn't great at playing keyboards, so I was more into like sampling drums and sampling sounds and loops and bits like that, and making tracks up myself. So it was a very primitive setup that I had right at the very start, doing alternate, just that sampler. Then I bought a little drum machine that I used to like sequence the samples together, and that's how like a lot of the first album was made, on those two pieces of kit.
That's so crazy, because obviously technology has grown, and you can sit in front of a computer and make a whole album on Ableton Pro Tools, so just having those two pieces of kit just blows my mind. Like the amount of like music you can get from those two things, and then you see loads of musicians now, they have racks and racks of stuff, like Liam Howler from The Prodigy, so from just going from that though, I mean, and you say you're getting paid too is always nice, especially in this world, the DJ producer world. It's usually when you're first starting out, it's like you play basically for free.
Yeah.
Just to get your name out. How hard was it for you, because obviously that's the beginning of the rave scene. The 88, 89 started, the acid house started coming out. How difficult was it for you to start getting, alternate out there?
I mean, like I said, a lot of it was purely by luck. I mean, we'd done the Nexus 21 album that came out, and we didn't know if anyone had bought it. We didn't know how many had sold. We didn't get any money for it. So bumping into a record label boss and him saying, "Oh, I've got your album at the office. We were going to try and contact you," which is obviously, back then, it's very difficult to, you buy an album and then like the studio had gone bump. So there was no way of contacting us through them. It's like, how on earth would you get in contact with us? So it was like, a bit of a miracle that I just bumped into them at a club. And they like totally backed what we were doing. Got one of our tracks that we'd already recorded on the original album. And because what we were trying to do was like Detroit techno, within 3 months of us signing to the label, they sent us out to Detroit to work with the people who were at that time, like my musical heroes, for a week, so that we could work on, our production skills and learn stuff from the people who were doing it. But the alternate thing came as like a sideline, really, because we'd recorded like an extra 9 tracks that didn't sound like Nexus 21. And the label, because there was great interest in Network Records right at the start, and they're like, "Have you got any more stuff that we can put out to fill out their release schedule?" And we said, "Well, we've got these nine tracks here." Played them to them. They said they don't really sound like Nexus 21. Can you think of another name and we'll put them out? Just as like an 8-track EP. They liked 8 of the tracks. Just put it out, 8 tracks, no promotion, no DJ copies. Just put it out, see if it sells. So he said, "Oh yeah, Chris used to be in a band called Alienate. that's what we'll call it. And when the records turned up at the label, they phoned us up, went over there to have a look, opened the box, pull out a record, and it says Altern on the top. And we're like, that's not what we're supposed to be called. And they said, well, it's too late now. It's all on the record, stickers are done and everything. And luckily, that record sold really well. I mean, not, like in a chart kind of way, but to DJs at the time. So, like, as the rave scene was building, a lot of DJs getting into it, and they'd rather buy an 8-track 12-inch than, say, an American 12 that's got like one track that they like on it. Mm-hmm. So when we did Infiltrate as a follow-up, bearing in mind we still weren't that serious about Alternate. We'd done this side project where we'd used up like 8 old tracks, and then we were asked to do a remix for somebody else, and did the remix. Still got like 4 hours studio time, so recorded Infiltrate. It was just a track I wanted, break beats, air horns, acid noises, sub bass, everything all rolled into one. And because the 8-tracker had sold really well, people were waiting for a follow-up. So Infiltrate kind of like got into the lower end of the charts, and that's when things started to go a bit mad, and we started to be a bit more serious about it, because it was taken off more than the Nexus 21 thing that was our like serious project.
Yeah, it's also record stores back in the day were huge. You'd have kids going in. I spent so many hours in a record store, and I'd come out with one track. You just would. But I think that helped push bands like yourself. Alternate was more underground, even though you finally did get on top of the pops. Which is just mental to say, like, you were on top of the pops. I mean, again, I'm an English lad that used to watch Top of the Pops
as a kid,
and watch these people all miming, from rockers to punks to whatever, and then you're actually on top of the pops, and it's probably one of the most bizarre things, because I think when you first were on it, the crowd looked like they'd never heard anything like that before, and I really want to ask you too about, I saw it in a it's called the 90s rave group, and someone had actually pointed out there's a bottle of Vicks Vapor Rub.
Yeah. On my keyboard stand,
I'd never seen that before. So that kind of gave me a chuckle, because the whole Vicks Vapor Rub and what went on in the rave scene. Where did the like outfits come from? Because I talked to Leroy from the Prodigy about where, because they wear clownish outfits.
Yeah.
I was just like, where did the idea to wear like clown outfits? And he was like, well, they're not really clown outfits. They were actually made by a friend of ours. So, how did those outfits come about? Because, once I saw the masks, then they seemed to take off with everyone. Everyone from the UK to the US was wearing the masks. So how did the idea, because, we look at DJs now, and then you've got like people like Marshmello, Dead House. They wear these masks, or whatever LEDs got in there. But for me, it was something totally different. What you lads did.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. We didn't think like to have an image to set us apart from everyone. We were still doing early '91. We were still doing live gigs at raves as Nexus 21. There was like a bit of a tour where it was Network Records and Warp Records. So there was LFO, Nightmares on Wax, Rhythmatic, and Nexus 21. And we did one gig at the Eclipse in Coventry. So all 4 groups did, like your live thing. And it was me and Chris, two X-stands. He had a keyboard, I had a 909. Come on stage, play live, go off. And then we got booked because Infiltrate 202 was on promo and lots of DJs were playing it. They were like, right, we want to be the first people to book Alternate to do a PA. And like, we haven't even got enough tracks really to do a PA. What are we going to do? And my brother was in the RAF at the time. And I said, have you got anything, like camouflage or whatever, we can put on so we don't look like how we did at the last gig? And he's like, I've got two of these NBC suits, which are nuclear chemical biology warfare suits. So we put those on, and if you get like a hood and pull the cords, you look like a right wally. So I thought we'll cover the rest of our face with a mask. So I just went and bought two masks just to fill the rest of the gap. And because of the whole acid house thing, and they used to have like a lot of the day glow stuff with the UV lights. So I thought I'll paint them, stick an A on for Alternate, that'll do. I mean, the bit at the front, I'd actually painted it with Tipex and then written Alternate in block letters, then filled them out with a highlighter and then drawn around in black and then covered it in sellotape so it didn't crack. So it was like proper DIY because we thought we'd do this one gig and that'd be it. We'd never do another PA again. I wrote a couple of extra like tracks on with my sampler and the drum machine. So I think I did a track called Say It Y'all, which eventually became Evaporate, and then the original demo of Activate, and then we got Infiltrate, and then I think 2 tracks off that 8-tracker. So it just made up a PA. And we went out and did it, and it was, I mean, you can actually see it in the Infiltrate 202 video. That was our first ever PA that we did. Like the footage was in the Eclipse, and that's how the suits came about. Didn't think we'd get another gig. Didn't even wash them for like maybe 6 months, to the point, they would have probably got up on stage themselves. They hummed that much. And in the end, we had to get like embroidery done and, do it a bit better than the old Tipex.
Yeah, as they say, the rest is history, because it's just gone down in folklore. Those suits and the masks. There's nobody else did it.
Did it? No. So I mean, there's a good reason, because you imagine how hot it was in a nightclub back then. I mean, even now there's some places that don't have air conditioning, and then you put that stupid suit on. It's like I get asked to wear it even now, and it's 30 years ago it was difficult. Now, I can hack it for like half an hour and then it's got to come off because it's just too warm.
Well, it's like the Boomtown gig. You put it on for the first like 30 minutes and you're like, I'm not having this.
That's it. It's got to come off. Yeah.
Yeah, you're breathing funny. I mean, the COVID days, we had to wear masks. That was bad enough,
Totally.
So having to wear that on stage for like an hour, I couldn't imagine, sweat dripping off the walls.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another reason we put the Vicks in the masks, because if you imagine you're recycling that air for an hour, they're not the nicest when you take them off. So we put Vicks in, so at least it was a bit more pleasant.
Yeah, I would say so, and like I'm sure the breath didn't smell too good after an hour.
Exactly.
Doing that, but when I want you to tell the little story, because we'll bring Liverpool into this. I know you talked about it before, but obviously I'm a big, massive Liverpool fan. But you've played in Liverpool, and you said at in Aintree at a warehouse that none of your mates seem to know where it was. What's it called? But can you tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, we did a fair few gigs in Liverpool. I mean, we played at Quadrant Park, as Nexus 21. I mean, like Derek May was there that night, and we were setting up and did like a live PA as Nexus 21. And then when the Infiltrate took off and we started getting bookings as Alternate, I think it was towards the end of 91, and we were asked to do a gig near Aintree. It's a massive warehouse, and I've got some photos of it somewhere because there was a photographer and a journalist from a magazine came out to the gig with us and took photos, and each of us stood behind this massive stack of speakers. You could see all the little wheels on the back of the speakers. And then me and Chris stood there, and they did like a whole magazine piece about this gig. But we knew that the next single was going to be Evaporate. And it started out life as a track called Say It All. And then I took the demo that I'd done at home into the studio, and we embellished on it, and then came up with the name Evaporate. So we said to our MC, what we want you to do at the end of the gig, when it's all died down a bit, there's still a bit of cheering, but not too much so we can hear you. Just shout Evaporate. No one will know what it means. The state of a lot of people at gigs back then, half of them probably didn't even know we were on stage, to be honest. It's just people were there and dancing. So we did the whole PA. Last track finished, crowd cheer. As it starts to die down, he shouts Evaporate. Crowd went off again just because he shouted Evaporate. But the sound engineer at the gig recorded it, and then we took the tape back to the studio, sampled the MC shouting Evaporate off it, and put it into the track. I mean, a few years later, it was that gig turned up on eBay as a bootleg CD, and I had to buy a copy, even though I knew all what the tracks were, and But it's just nice that moment was captured. I mean, I don't think I kept the cassette. I mean, in hindsight, it'd have been a bit of a clever idea to keep the original cassette, but at least I've got a bootleg copy.
Yeah, that you paid for.
Yeah, exactly.
Buying your own demo. That's bizarre. Yeah, I had many night and day in Quadrant Park. Like it just really, even though there was a lot of clubs around back in the day, Quadrant Park to me, and Shelley's as well, and we'll get on to these in a minute, but the energy, the togetherness, that I just, I don't want to be that old fart that kind of always says, well, back in my day it was better.
Yeah.
Each generation has their own thing,
exactly.
And in a lot of groups, just, especially with the DJing stuff now, it just seems to be a little easier because of the sync button and all of this stuff. I would never change it for the world. Growing up when I did, I'm also able to see this new generation and how they DJ and how they produce, which is great, because they're coming back to the old school. They're listening to your tracks. They're listening to SL2, Slipmat, just all the old stuff. But you've got the technology now to do their own thing, and I think that's brilliant. I have no problem with this new generation. EDM, I don't like that term. It's very Americanized, bastardized it. But at the end of the day, it is dance music, and you don't have to listen to some of the more poppy EDM stuff. Dance music to me is dance music. 80s music was dance music. It's still Depeche Mode, Joy Division, New Order. That's dance music as well. So I'm sure you've seen a massive change. How has your working process, like, do you still, are you like more technologically advanced now? Do you do Ableton, Pro Tools, or do you stick with the hardware? or a bit of both?
I think that like towards the mid to late 90s was the bit where I peaked with technology, because I'd managed to gather up all the bits of gear that I really wanted, and managed to, I'd learnt lots of production techniques. So I knew then what I wanted to know in 88, so whereas some people they were producing proper on point stuff in 88, I never felt that, our stuff was passable. But by like 96, 97, I'd learnt everything, and I was making the stuff that I'd always wanted to make. But I guess I got out of the actual engineering, recording side of it. I've always been more of a person who turns up with a bunch of ideas or a pile of records, and I'm still that person. So like I work with Shadow Child a lot now. We record stuff under our own names, and as Mask as well, which stands for Mark Archer Shadow Child. And I'll go in there, and he's on exactly the same page as me, ideas wise. So we're working on a track, and I'll just about to say what about, and he's already doing it. But he's like an absolute, studio wizard. So I just sit there on a swivel chair. Yep, I like this, and he's already doing stuff. So how about reversing that kick drum there? And so I'm not the person who messes about with the technology anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm a massive fan of Sasha, and I don't think he would be as big as he is, like producing wise, because he's got the likes of Charlie May, who again is kind of like a shadow child. He's a musical genius, in the studio producing wise, and we all need that little bit of help, to get that idea out.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same, I do some of my own stuff. It's just for me, not to put out, and even same with mixes as well. You'll make a mix and then it'll just stay there. It doesn't go on SoundCloud and Mixcloud. But it's great that, especially with Shadow Child as well. I love his productions as well. But you're getting, the old with the new.
Yeah.
And there's no difference, if you know what I mean. Like you're bringing these old ideas as well as new, and he's bringing new ideas, but it just sounds classic.
Yeah, and no, he's got the same kind of influences. Like my influences came from before hardcore, but his influences are hardcore and early jungle. So he knows exactly how to make stuff that authentic. I mean, when I was at school, we had possibly one computer for the entire school, but the entire school weren't able to use it. It was like the computer club. Whereas when he was at school, they had a music department and they had a 303 and a sampler. It's like, how amazing is that? So he was already being able to knock out tracks, and he's got DATs with tunes on that he made at school, which is just, it's mind blowing. But that was in like the early to mid 90s, so he knows all the kind of production techniques and how to do stuff. So he's like, although he's known for one kind of sound, if you listen to a lot of his releases, he's bang into jungle. And he did an EP, a Shadow Child EP, that samples like Chrome and Time and stuff like that, like vocal samples off rave cassettes. But it's proper, authentic, late 1990, early hardcore. You swear blind that it was made back then. It's so on point.
Yeah, his bass lines are just incredible. Yeah, and you just know it's a Shadow Child record. And same with yourselves with Alternate. You knew it was Alternate. I want to ask you definitely about Top of the Pops, because again, as I said before, it's, my age, we would all get in front of the telly, tea and stuff. But for a rave act to go on Top of the Pops, basically mime. When you got that call, like, obviously, you watched Top of the Pops when you was growing up.
Yeah.
But get an actual call to say, can you come and, play?
Yeah.
But obviously it's great exposure, but, to go on there and just, for 5 minutes, just mime what you're doing. Like, that must have been a good laugh.
Yeah. It's a weird one, because throughout the whole process of you having a big record, you'd get like what's called a midweek chart position. So it's say Wednesday, Thursday, and they tell you where you're at in the charts and what they think you're going to be at the end of the week when there's the chart rundown. Mm-hmm. So you're already having your head blown, like, oh my God, look, we've got like a midweek of 21 or something. It's like, I'm actually in the charts, and you don't know what to do. You put the phone down. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Do I phone up first? And then you get in the charts, and then the label sends someone to a meeting, and they want to know what are you going to do that's different on Top of the Pops. So you have to kind of sell yourself like no one's done this before. So they think, actually, no one's done that before. We'll get you on. So then you get the call saying, like, right, you're on Top of the Pops. And you have to go down there on a Wednesday, and they record it as is. So how you see it on a Thursday is how they record it. So they do like the intro titles, goes to the person who introduces the first band, then the cameras go on them. And then while they're there's another group on another stage. There's like 4 different stages. And then while they're introducing the next one, they move the crowd to the front of that stage, and then the cameras go on that. And it's all done in half an hour. But you have to do about 4 different rehearsals during the day. So the first one, you just stood there. They're like, stand there, and we'll like position the cameras around you. And then you do another one where move like you're going to move tonight. Oh, well, I hadn't planned on what I was going to do, but all right then. And then whoever moves the most, they then work the cameras around that. So you get on TV a bit more. Mm-hmm. Then you do one with the like a dress rehearsal. So you've got all these lights, the stupid suits on, sweating buckets. And then they do the one where it's like, right, we're recording this, and you've got to do it. But it's all recorded at the same studios as EastEnders. Mm-hmm. So when you go on a break to the canteen, the Mitchell brothers are sat there, and Doc Cotton walks past you, and then you're on Top of the Pops with like Cher, Tina Turner, and they're all walking past, and you're just like, you feel like a 5-year-old. Just why on earth am I here? But it's all because if you imagine how many raves were on each weekend, and your tune's getting played at these raves, if only a tiny percentage of those people go out and buy your song when it's released, boom, you're catapulted into the charts. You've gotten, no power over how that happens unless you don't make enough records. And the record label have ploughed money into you. They've paid for things, and they want to recoup that money. So the minute they think they can make their money back, they go, right, we're going to produce X amount of records to make sure there's enough for demand. So then your tunes go bam, bam, bam. And I mean, we went on Top of the Pops. It was actually shown over here last Friday. They're doing reruns of 91. And we went in the charts, and I thought, that's it, we're going out with, like, no one's going to like this the week after. And absolute miracle, we went up and carried on going up until we got to number 3.
Well, it must have been so bizarre. I couldn't imagine Cher or anyone else walking past you lot in your alternate skies. Going,
Yeah, we got
who
some
are these
real weird
lollies?
looks. People like, what? Because we were the only ones really wearing that kind of thing. People like, who are you and why have you got that on?
Yeah. So take me back to Shelley's, the story of, playing in the car park. I would love to have been there, coming out of Shelley's, obviously 80-90% smashed.
Yeah.
And seeing you two on a lorry, doing your thing. Who's brilliant, because it is brilliant. Whose brilliant idea was it to do that?
Well, it was an idea that was like bounced about, with a few people. It's like we thought, because we played the very first acetate of Activate, took it to Shelley's because I used to go there. If we weren't doing a PA, I was at Shelley's or the Eclipse. Like you say about Quadrant Park, everywhere had their big club. So Coventry had the Eclipse, Liverpool had Quadrant Park, Stoke had Shelley's. So we took the acetate, and the MC stopped everything, and he's like, right, this is the new single by Alternate. Put it on, absolutely went off. And it was just like the support that we got from the club is like, it'd be nice to give something back. So like you've said, when people came out of a club, most people went to the car park, opened the doors, turned their stereo on, everyone danced around cars. And I never got, like, why would people want to? You've just come out of a nightclub and now you're listening to a pair of little dodgy Alpine speakers, like, that's probably flapping. Wouldn't it be good if we did, like a proper 5K sound system on the back of a truck and did a bit of a PA? That way we could get some like footage for the video. So it was all planned. We turned up like 5:30 in the afternoon with the truck parked up in the car park. So it just looked like a trucker is, having a layover in a car park. Went into Shelley's as it was, any normal Saturday. Camera crew were in there, like, filming. There's bits in the Activate video where they're inside, filming people dancing and all the rest. And then we left about 15 minutes before the end, got all set up. So when people started coming out, and there's a truck, and you could hear the MC, and people all started standing by the truck, but there was more people in the car park than there was in the club because word had got out. So there's people like standing on top of cars and stuff. Then we pulled the tarpaulin back up, started playing. We did Infiltrate, then we did Activate, we did Frequency. The police turned up, asked us to stop, so we did another version of Activate. The police turned up, asked, like, can you stop now? Don't do any more. I think we did one more, and they said, right, if you carry on, we're going to arrest someone. So we called it a day. But there was a local reporter from BBC Stoke who turned up with the DAT machine and a microphone. We didn't know he was there, and he walked around recording the whole evening and doing little sound bites and stuff, and then came over later on and interviewed the record label boss. Some of the guys from Bizarre Inc. were there, interviewed them, interviewed me and Chris, and we pressed that up as a one-sided 12-inch. But he's in this car park chatting away and says, this is the moment they've all been waiting for. This is the sound of Alternate. We heard it back, thought that's brilliant, so got him to redo them and put them on Evaporate.
Yeah, that's legendary. That is,
So
the rest is history. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mad night, to be honest.
Oh, I bet. I bet for a lot of the ravers coming out of there and seeing you lot play, man, that would have blown my mind. Yeah. But it's exactly like how you say, you come out of a rave and you just go straight to your car and turn the music on and everybody, starts dancing. But yeah, I couldn't imagine coming out and seeing use lot, I'd have to, knock my head a few times. So, how do you feel about like the resurgence of like the hardcore music kind of coming back? I mean, I saw a little documentary about like over 50s raving in Scotland, which it made my heart just like grow bigger and bigger, because I'd love to see that. And when you still gig, you're still seeing like 40 to 50-year-olds, even 60-year-olds at your gig, and that's great to see, isn't it? In between the youngsters. And I think sometimes like I saw the Boomtown one you did, and I love all your sets, but it was nice to see, there was video of the crowd, and you got the old ravers and the new ravers just raving together, and that's how it should be,
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, we're so like thrown music out, into our ears like every minute of the day, whether it's good or bad, but we're just it's surrounded us. But for you, to look up and just see, the ages, and you're still doing it after 40 years, Mark. I mean, you still pinch yourself. I mean, do you say that's your job, or do you just say this is what I do? Because
it is a job. I mean, it's the thing that I get paid to do, but it's something that I love doing. It's like I can't do anything else. I've been doing it that long. I didn't, apart from the painting and decorating, which I did for 2 years. This is what I've done ever since. It's the difference between doing like a job that pays and just about, you eke a living, and you can get by, but you really enjoy doing it. You wouldn't want to do anything else. Or you do a job that you can't stand, and you're away from your family, and you're stressed out to the max, and it's like you weigh it up. But doing the DJing, just seeing all those people dancing, to tunes that are like 30 years old. And I used to say to people, like, when I first started doing like the old school revival thing, which is in the late 90s, you'd get the people who wanted to relive it, who were there at the time, and maybe their younger brothers and sisters who had missed out but collected the flyers and knew all the music and never experienced it. You've gone through so many generations that you've now got the people who were there at the time, their younger brothers and sisters, the brothers and sisters who are maybe like 10 years younger than them, who have been passed tapes down, but never witnessed it. And you've got their kids who've been brought up on, I see like 17, 18-year-olds at the front who sing every single word to Shades of Rhythm. And you're like, how on earth do you know all the words? And it's because their mom and dad have brought them up on that music. Just like my dad was playing Barry White, they've been playing SL2, and it's to see all those people and to still be relevant, to still play at festivals 30 odd years on, and play that music and it still go down as well as it used to. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, it's just seeing the joy on their faces. Like, it's funny to hear, some of the old ravers, they'd love an armchair, at these raves, so they could sit down for a little while. But I mean, for me, like having 4 kids, I love to go to bed about 9:30 at night. If a good show comes, I'll go to it. Obviously, I'm not as young as I used to be, so the dancing is bare minimum. Maybe tapping the foot. And stuff, but I can get down when I want to, but then the next 3 days I'm hurting for.
The recovery takes a lot longer.
But yeah, as you said, it is great. again, I'm in these groups that you see their parents going, I'm taking my kid to his first rave.
Yeah.
That again just makes me smile, and that's what this scene's all about, is passing it on down.
Totally.
And some of these kids, like you said, they know more than like me. They know more than they'll throw. I have good chats when I'm out at a club or a rave, and I think I'm gonna, I know. I know that. Yeah. I know how they did the bass line. I know how they did the melody. I'm like, who are you? You're like
Yeah.
18, you little bastard.
Yeah. But with the internet, it's the biggest search engine in the world. Mm-hmm. And if you're into it, because I know back in '88 when it all started, there was a lot of people who went there purely because it was the cool thing to do. They weren't necessarily into acid house. They were just told, oh, this is the latest thing, and went along. There's people there now who just, are at festivals where I'm supposed to go. But there's also the people who are bang into it, and they'll go on YouTube and they'll go down a rabbit hole and look at, like you said, EDM's not fantastic, but it's an entry. And then they might be like going to that kind of stuff, listening to it, but then it's like related videos, boom, off they go, and they're discovering, the real deal.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about like social media? Like, I know Terry Farley's been a big advocate of like, look, when you're there, put your phones down,
Yeah.
Maybe when you're there for the first minute, take a picture, take a video, but put it in your pocket and use this. How's your feeling on that? Because for me, like, if I was DJing or playing live and all I saw was phones, that would just it kind of takes away the human side of things. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, people still remember, or if they weren't too enhanced, they can remember, things that we did 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I'm also aware that when people went to an acid house do, they'd wear a smiley T-shirt and a bandana and shout acid at the top of their voice, because that's what they thought you were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, people go to a gig and everyone's got this up, so everyone does it. It's like a phase, that's what people think you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. I think it'll eventually come out of that and people will stop holding their phones up and it'll get back to people dancing. And the few gigs that I've done where they don't allow people having they'll put a sticker on top of your camera or whatever, and you're not allowed to use your phone. And people are just there for dancing. There's none of the staring. And I understand why people stand and watch you and stare. I understand why people film you. They want to capture that moment and they can show people and put it up on social media. But the energy is far better when there isn't any.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you imagine you're 6 rows back, all you're seeing is a sea of phones. You're not even seeing the act that you want to see.
Yeah.
If everyone put them down, but I think it's just going to take time for this fad to go out.
Yeah, I'm the same with you. I don't like it, but it's the young generation again. It's social media, They seem like they have to video everything. Wherever they go, they've got a video. You go to a restaurant, you got to take a picture of what you're eating. I don't quite understand that. You're in the supermarket, you got to take a picture of that. You're crossing the street, you got to take a picture of that. Again, I'm sounding like that old fart that sits on their outside telling people to get off their grass. Again, it's their time, but we're still there, and I think all these people putting on these great like events, bringing DJs like yourself, you know, to their towns. It's kind of like a history lesson for me. But I like what you do as well. You don't just play, you know, all the old school stuff. You'll throw in, you know, newer stuff, which I think, you know, is great for the crowd as well. Because every set we've always got to learn, you know, music is always, like, for me, you've got to take me on like a journey, you know, a dancing journey. You know, there's some DJs very melodic, can just bore you to death just because it's a plateau, you know, they'll pick you up and they'll bring you back down. I love the breaks, I always will, because, you know, not every break beat is the same. Bass lines are different, you know, you highs, lows, everywhere. So, I mean, my hat's off to you for doing this for 40 years and you're still making people smile. And that's, at the end of the day, is what it's all about.
Thank you.
So I know you've got upcoming remixes, right, of some of your older tracks coming out?
Yeah, Evaporate remixes are coming out on the 1st of December. I mean, one of the guys who's done the remix, Pete Cannon, he's in like the school of like the new people doing hardcore and jungle, like Swankat and Denim Audio, all the Club Glow lot, local group. But he set up a label purely to put out stuff that was made on an Amiga, which a lot of the producers around my time, it was either an Atari or an Amiga, you know, and he's using the same software, the same programs on an old Amiga and making, you know, like current up-to-date jungle. So he's done a remix of Evaporate, and it's absolute killer. But you know, it's mad how the music's gone full circle, and you know, people are producing stuff on the same equipment.
Well, again, it's an ode to, you know, what you all started, you know, which again I love. That's kind of saying these young lads really appreciate what you've done and what you know everyone did back then. It's a nice cap off to use that.